How's it going, guys? Part 5 of a iOS tweak development series, and in this video I'm going to be introducing Cycript. So Cycript has been outdated ever since the last iOS jailbreak came out, not the newest one, and it's finally been updated for 9.3.x, which means we can use it to help make iOS tweak development a lot easier. So this was just updated a little under an hour ago, and as soon as I saw the alert from my download blog, I knew I had to make a video on it and make sure that everyone knew at least how to get their foot in the door with Cycript. So Cycript is a package on the Cydia store, and you need to install it in order to use it, obviously, and you also need to update Cydia Substrate if you have not already. So what is Cycript? Cycript's tagline, according to Zurich, is a way to explore and modify applications on iOS or Mac OS X. Yes, it does work on both, using a hybrid of Objective-C++ and JavaScript syntax. So that's really cool because that means that we can use the flexibility and ease of use of JavaScript with the iOS compatibility and Mac OS X compatibility of Objective-C. So we can manipulate objects that are in memory with JavaScript, which is awesome. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about that and provide a demo application. But if you want to go ahead and read all about Cycript, you can do so from this manual. It has a lot of stuff you probably don't need at first, but if you do read this, you'll have a very good understanding of how Cycript works and why it would be useful. So I do recommend you read this at some point, but for now I'm going to give you the basics. Also, after you watch this video, I do recommend you go to the iPhone Dev Wiki and look up the Cycript tricks page. It has just a bunch of very small, useful things that you'll find are, like I said, very useful for iOS tweak development. So, for example, printing out the ivars or the instance variables of a class. You can do that by simply copying this and then running the try print ivars function inside of the command line. So it's super easy, and it just does a bunch of stuff that doesn't come with Cycript. So now we're going to actually get into how Cycript is useful to us. So I've created a demo application here, a very revolutionary product, where whenever a user taps the click me button, the score goes up, and every time they tap it, it goes up. And when they stop tapping it, it stops going up. Revolutionary, I know. I'm keeping it under wraps, but I am releasing the source code to you guys so that you can use this for your Cycript exploration. So go ahead and load this into Xcode and load it onto your device. And I'm going to go ahead and explain how this app works and why I made it like it is. There we go. So I've made this app so that it's a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, but I've done so on purpose so that I can explain a little bit more about how Cycript works. So while Cycript can do a bunch of UI stuff and has the total functionality too, I found that UI was not exactly a focus for me because you don't really need to change the UI too much in an iOS tweak. You're more concerned about the data going into the UI. So what I've done is I've created a model called Scorekeeper. You can see it being referenced here inside of my view controller. And Scorekeeper is the simplest class ever. It holds one variable. It's an integer variable, and it's called score. So every time we need to access the score variable, we can just do anything that is of the class Scorekeeper.score, and then we have access to our score. We can set it, we can get it, we can do anything we want to it, but just know that it is in a separate class. Other than that, most of this code is just for UI purposes. This method right here is to hook up this method to our UI button, and this is the last line of code that involves our model, which essentially just says increment the score by 1, and that's it. So other than that, like I said, all of this is UI stuff. We don't need too much information on it, but I will show you guys how to manipulate it in just a second. So like I said, there's only a few things we're concerned about here. Our Scorekeeper class, which is holding our score, and our view controller, which is holding our instance of Scorekeeper, which I've called score model for this example. To use Cycript, I don't know if I've already said this because this is like my 50th attempt at this video. You need to install Cycript and update Cydia Substrate. And then you want to SSH into your device. And once you're in your device, we can run Cycript like that, but we need to attach it to a process. That's the only reason it's helpful to us. So to do that, we use the process flag, which is -p, and then the process name. So for example, if we wanted to attach to Springboard, we could, but we don't care too much for Springboard right now. We care more about our app, which I've called Cycript demo, which can be seen up here. So if I type Cycript demo, we have a command line prompt, and now we have full access to my app. So first thing we're going to do is get a reference to this score model. So right now we don't have too much information on the score model, so I'm going to show you how we would even know this existed in an app, and then how to hook it. Because remember, in a normal app we wouldn't have this kind of information, especially because this is inside the .m file and not the header file. So what we could do is we could pull out Flex, which might make things a little bit easier for now, and we use the menu button right there. And what we can do, I'm sorry, I need to get closer to the microphone. And what we can do is we can go into the Cycript demo classes. And as you can see, there's 3 classes and they're listed right here. We have our app delegate, our Scorekeeper, and our view controller. So we know what the view controller is. That can be implied. If you see anything that ends in view controller, you can just assume that it has something to do with UI. But when we see something like Scorekeeper, you know that it's a model object or a model class. And so you might want to dig deeper into that. So I'm going to go ahead and tap Scorekeeper, and we can see one property, and that's score. All right. So now we know that there is a property, and it's called score. So now that we know that information, we can do some good with it. So we can go inside Cycript, and we know that the model is called Scorekeeper. So to grab all of the objects that are of the class Scorekeeper, we can actually use a function that's available to us by Cycript. That's called choose, and then as the first argument, you're going to pass the name of the class. So mine's going to be Scorekeeper. And so now we see all of the Scorekeeper objects. And as we expect there to be, there's only one. So now I'm going to create a variable that's referencing Scorekeeper, this one in particular, and then we can hopefully manipulate it so that we can change our score, which is the ultimate goal. I should have probably said that already. So to do this, we're going to use JavaScript syntax. So we're going to use the var keyword to declare that we're about to create a variable. We're going to call this sk, just because it's abbreviated for Scorekeeper. And then we're going to grab this object. And to do that, we're going to use the # and then the memory address. And that's all we need. So now once we press enter, Cycript knows that we're referencing Scorekeeper, the exact same one, and now we can manipulate it and use it however we please. So for this one, I'm going to set the score. Actually, I should probably show you a few things that you can do with the variable now that you have it. So first thing you can do is just print it. You can see what the type is and the memory address of it. You can also print out all of the instance variables by putting an asterisk in front of it. So as you can see, there's an ISA instance variable called Scorekeeper, and then we have an instance variable called score, because all properties are backed by instance variables. So we know we have a score instance variable, and that's 108. So another thing we can do is list all of the messages that it has to offer. So if we type in sk, I believe it's just messages. I could be wrong. No. Oh, I remember. It's sk and then an arrow indicating that we're pointing to the ISA instance variable, ISA. So now we're pointing to the instance variable ISA, which is Scorekeeper. So if we were to just hit return on this, it would say Scorekeeper. And then we need to get the messages that come with this class. So this has a, I guess, a dictionary with all the messages in it. Is that not it? I'm fairly confident that's it, but because there are no methods in there, it's not doing anything for us. So I'm just going to leave that at that and hope that I am correct. I can actually test that in just a second whenever we get to our other view. But we can't access the score instance variable like that, so we can see that's 108. But we're more interested in the property score, not the instance variable. So if we just use dot syntax, we can access score the same way. So sk.score, and now we can just use an equal sign and set it to 999, for example. And now when we hit enter, nothing happens in the UI because the UI hasn't been updated. But if we were to tap the click me one more time, you can see that our score is now 1000, which is pretty easy. So that means that we can access anything we want inside of here and change it with almost no effort. Let's see. Alright, so now we can manipulate UI objects. So I said I was going to show some UI manipulation, so now's as good a time as any. To access our UI, we're going to need to access the shared application object, and we can do that by typing UI application shared application and hitting enter. But because Cycript is an awesome package, they've already created an abbreviation for this, so we can just use UI app. And this is the exact same thing as running UI application shared application. So now we can use UI app to get the key window, and the key window is basically everything that's on the screen at the moment. So if we grab the key window, it'll return a UI window, and it'll have everything we need. And another thing that comes with Cycript that's pretty cool is the recursive description function. So if I just type in RECU and press tab, tab completion will take care of that, and we'll have recursive description function. And one more thing we're going to do just to make sure that this is formatted nicely is to use the toString function provided to us by Cycript. And now we have the entire UI Windows hierarchy, view hierarchy, printed out to us in a nice and easy to read format. So as you can see, there's a UI button here, and this button's text is click me, and we have a UI label, and the UI label's text is score 1000, which are both UI elements on here. So let's do the exact same thing we did up here with Scorekeeper, but this time let's do it with the label. So we copy the memory address, and we set up a variable. I'm going to call this one S label. It's the score label. And then set it equal to the memory address, remembering that pound sign at the beginning. And so now we have a reference to this UI label, and we can use it by just typing S label. So if we do S label dot text, we can actually set the text of the label really easily. So for example, I could set the text to this is the score label, and over here we can see that the text has been set. And I can change this to literally anything as long as it's a string, and it will show up in the UI. So I can do the same thing with the button. I can do the same thing with UI layout guides if I knew any of their properties. I can do the same thing with a UI view. So if I wanted to do that, just grab the memory address. And then I can set the background color. I'll just do this in Objective-C syntax so that you can see that it's not only JavaScript. So sview set background color, and there is tab completion for Objective-C methods as well. Do UI color red color, or no, it's already red. Let's do black. And I hit enter. You can see that our background has been changed to black, which is incredible. So if you want to keep tinkering around with Cycript, you can do so. You can create your own demo application so you know what's going on inside of the application, or you can venture out and start dumping applications that are already out on the App Store and manipulate them that way. And then with this information, you can go and create a tweak that does exactly what this does. Now, you can't use the exact same commands like this through Cycript to create a tweak, but what you can do is convert this into a tweak format, if you will. So now we know that there's a UI label right here, and we know that we can access it. You can't do the memory address thing like you can in Cycript, but you will know how to get to it because there's a UI view that you can access, and then you can find the UI label through that. Or there's probably a property referring to it, so I should actually probably demo that as well. If I wanted to know all the properties of the view controller, I can get the view controller objects by typing choose view controller. And it looks like this just crashed the application. I'll run that again. Alright. Do not know what just happened there. Come on, you can stop anytime you want. Huh, it looks like I crashed Xcode more than the application. Alright, well, anyhow, you get the gist. I've totally ruined everything with Cycript. I don't know what just happened. It's probably either because I'm an awful programmer or because Cycript is still being updated, because like I've said, it was just released under an hour ago. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you learned a lot from this video and how to create tweaks based on Cycript commands. And join me in the next video where I'll probably be creating an activator tweak.